Hello and welcome to my showcase of my successful online lesson, A Villain You Say. Indeed, perhaps, identifying important character traits and determining their presence or lack thereof in Ambrose Bierce's An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. I've conducted this lesson several times in the face-to-face environment, but have never had a chance to teach it online since I've never taught a course like the one I'm building online. I've successfully used this type of setup with a number of different works of world and American literature to explore the presence or lack thereof of various character traits and what that says about the work's place in its own time and ours and why that's important. I've gotten good results a lot of the time. I've identified the following learning objectives for this lesson. Using our class text, student-student discussion, student-instructor discussion, and instructor-made and other videos, students will decide for themselves if anyone is the quote-unquote villain of Ambrose Bierce's An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. Using our class text, student-to-student discussion, student-instructor discussion, and instructor-made and other videos, students will explain and defend their choices. Using our class text, student-to-student discussion, student and instructor discussion, and instructor-made and other videos, students will analyze the arguments made by their classmates and decide to what extent they agree or disagree with them and why they feel the way they do. Using our class text, student-to-student discussion, student-instructor discussion, and instructor-made and other videos, students will determine whether having a quote-unquote villain makes a difference to An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, and if it does, whether that difference is positive or negative. Using our class text, student-to-student discussion, student and instructor discussion, and instructor-made and other videos, students will decide what such difference means in the context of what we have already read. Instructional materials I previously have and or will use for this lesson are the course textbook, instructor-made and other videos, and Zoom and or Google Meet, depending on the technical feasibility of each and student preferences. I believe this is appropriate to this type of lesson in the online environment because this is what I understand to be a proven model by way of this program as well as colleagues of mine at UNLV who have taught extensively online. As referenced in the rubric for this assignment, when putting this presentation together, I sought to involve as few tools as possible. This is also encouraged here at UNLV, partially to save bandwidth, which is always in short supply, and also to mitigate any issues caused by things like intermittent power or internet failures, which often strike without warning. Student-to-student interaction is paramount to this activity, as this is how students will argue for their choices and, just as importantly, decide to what extent they agree or disagree with any of the points made by their classmates. In a face-to-face environment, this was all done verbally. Indeed, a lot of it still will be over Zoom and or Google Meet, but feedback was often given in written form depending on student preference. I intend to encourage that in the online environment as well. In the face-to-face environment, I would give feedback to students both verbally and in writing, and they would give it to me, just as often vice versa. I didn't/do not mind at all when my students disagree with me, as long as they make a good case based on evidence and don't get nasty about it. That's my policy when I do any kind of online instruction and or online presentations as well. Regardless of the environment involved, if there's anything my students learn from me, it's that I ask for a lot of feedback and I ask for it frequently because I don't claim to have all the answers. I believe these activities have real-world applications beyond literature because many career fields involve having to argue one's position about any number of issues. A former professor of mine once said, "Life is a word problem." What I believe he meant by that is that no matter one's career field, we're always using evidence to form opinions while others do the same. There is almost never universal agreement about anything, and we're always arguing and defending whatever it is we believe. The closing assessment for this activity is, if you determine someone was the quote-unquote villain of the story, rewrite a short scene from their point of view in order to show why you think that way. If you believe there is no real quote-unquote villain in the story, rewrite a short scene showing why no one is specifically to blame. In either case, incorporate as much evidence from the text as possible.